Hey everyone, welcome to Uncle Matt's Garage. Today we have a 2022 TTR 230 Yamaha. My little cousin's bike, and he broke it. So we're gonna figure out how he broke it. He goes to put it in gear, revs the engine. She won't move forward. She won't go anywhere. So we're gonna drain the oil. We're gonna pop the clutch cover off, and we're gonna see what broke. So the first thing I noticed is I took a look at the oil sight glass. I had the engine warmed up before, and when it's warmed up, it's supposed to be in between those two little hash marks, and you can actually see the oil level inside the sight glass, so you know that the oil in the crankcase is at the proper level. So our whole problem might be coming off of a low oil condition. So I'm suspecting that something is wrong with the clutch. The gear shift mechanism I can shift through and roll as I'm rolling the bike. So the clutch connects the transmission to the engine, and it's pretty much, if that's bad, then the bike's not going to go anywhere. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to drain the oil. So we're going to pop off the oil fill cap. That's going to allow the oil to flow out of the bottom of the motor without creating a vacuum, and that way it flows real nice. So right behind the shifter, that's your oil drain bolt. There's going to be a spring behind it. I'm going to knock that through. I'm going to slowly kind of pull this out so oil doesn't splash this all over it, hit me in the face, because dirt bike oil really doesn't taste that great. There should be a whole lot of oil coming out of this. As you can see, we got some gunky stuff in the plug. It's usually pretty typical. Here's our spring we're going to pop out. Now, and here's a strainer. This keeps all that big gunk from going inside the small oil passages and getting all over the motor. And doesn't really look like there's too much oil in that thing. Well, we'll let it drain, and that way we make a lot less of a mess once we pull that clutch cover off. Next step, we're going to pop the oil filter out, because we're going to have to change it anyway, and it'll be a lot easier to break free all the nuts and bolts while we're while the crankcase is bolted onto the motor still. So we'll just pop these guys out. See what the oil filter looks like. That drain down there. Oof. So that does not look good. We're going to have to teach him how to change his oil more. And hopefully he didn't really do any real damage to it. But you can see inside. Try to get in here. It's pretty nasty. It's real gritty. So clean that out and start popping the clutch cover off. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the clutch lever out of our way. There's a little hairpin behind here. There's a little folds over, pops out. And this little hook thing here, I've come up with, that stops it from getting pulled out. Because when that pulls out, you know, whatever you're holding together falls apart, and you know, you could have a catastrophic accident, like rip your left arm off or something. You know, things have happened. So there's a little bit of spring pressure behind the lever from the brake drums right here. I'm gonna pop that off. I'm just gonna kind of walk that off. It's not gonna be a whole lot to where it's gonna spring off at us. Just gonna make sure we don't lose any of the clips. Just gonna keep that there. Then we're gonna put this right back in there so we don't lose anything. Take spring pressure off. And then I'm gonna wanna pop off the foot peg, just because it makes my life a little easier. You guys can see a little bit better. For one, how tight this is. So loosen up both. First one's off. Now when I go to put these back on, I'm going to use some red Loctite and torque it to spec. If you lose a foot peg while you're riding, you know, that might not be so convenient for getting back home. Alrighty. So now, if you notice here, this is the starter wire. We're going to want to try to see, get enough play to kind of get that out of our way a little bit. And we're going to start popping all these guys out. These are all your clutch cover crankcase bolts. Little M6 by 1.0 thread bolts. When you put these back together, it's really good to torque them with a torque wrench, because there's not a whole lot that goes on them, and they snap very easily. Also, life is a lot easier with T-handles. Alright, so now we have all the bolts all the way around loosened up. We'll see if she's got a little bit of play. Just kind of wiggle it. Ideally, if you could not knock out the bolts, you can flip the cover, put it right on the oil pan, not lose anything. This is a pretty new bike, so they're not, that's seized on there. Alright, let's pull this guy off. This guy wants to hold on to us. Alright. So now, looking at in there, That's filthy. There's a lot of grit. There's a lot of grime. I'm willing to bet there's a whole bunch of clutch material in there, and that's what that is. So now we're looking at it. That clutch looks cooked. There's all kinds of debris. You can see it all in the engine case. So I think saying the clutch is probably a pretty good indication of what's wrong. So now what we'll do is we'll get set up. Clean this little bit of oil off the floor here. Set up another rag. So I want to see what that clutch material looks like. Oh yeah, look at that. So if I can move that by hand, you can see how warped it is. That means the clutch springs aren't holding anything together. So the way this works, right, you have your outer basket, you have an inner hub. Put all your frictions and your steels on, and then at the end, on Yamaha at least, there's like a bevel washer, and you put everything on, and you screw all these screws in, torque them to spec of course, but these springs hold a spring pressure against all these discs, right? So when you push in the clutch, this gets pushed out. I wonder if there's any clutch life left. I can show you. So you see that little motion going in and out? There's a clutch rod right here. It pushes out against this, right? So then when you let go of the clutch, it pops back in, and then it has a nice tight pressure against these discs. So if this was a good clutch, I would not be able to be turning. It wouldn't even turn, because see how tight the outer basket is? That's how tight this should be. So I'm gonna have to pop them out, and I'm gonna show you guys what a burnt clutch looks like. All right, so normally you can loosen these up by hand pretty easily because, you know, it's not smoked. So we're gonna have to use a gun for these. Now you never want to put this stuff back together with a gun. Like I said, these are M6 by 1.0 thread bolts. They're not super strong. I mean, they're strong for, you know, when they're torqued properly and they get the job done. But, you know, if you go putting it down with, you know, 200 foot-pounds of torque, she's gonna break. So now let's work this off. So the first thing we're going to do is pop the outer off. Right. It's a little shiny. Doesn't look like there's too much wear. So that clutch rod is in here, and that's what pushes out. Then this pushes here, and this particular clutch is actually adjustable. You can turn this screw right back off that nut. You can turn that screw in and out. All right, so my camera actually died. I'm learning the lessons of keeping it plugged in while you're filming. But yeah, guys, so basically, I mean, the more discs you take out, the worse it looks. Notice on here, all the pads are completely worn off. So all this material here, all through the bottom of that, it's all clutch material. Here's that shorter, and here's the disc, if you notice. See how skinny this one is versus this one? In here, there's a little bevel spring, and that fits inside of that one. And just remember the order of that one. You want to put it back in, same spot you took it out. But, I mean, he's going to have to get a completely new clutch. There's no way around it. Other than that, there's a lot of times with older bikes, there's scoring on the clutch hub here, but this one just has a little indicator. You can see that this thing got hot because you can see the discoloration. Now, I'm going to pull all this apart. We're going to clean everything real good. And, you know, get as much cleaned out of here as possible. It's going to be a few oil changes, though, because, you know, there's just everything's just sitting in the bottom of the transmission right now. And the oil filter, this screen here, you know, that'll pick up a lot of it, so it won't harm the motor. But we want to clean out as much as humanly possible. You know, I'm going to fold this washer back here, pop that out, I'll pull all this apart. But, you know, if you have one of these bikes or just another bike with a, you know, bike goes into gear and it's not moving type problem, first thing you got to check is the clutch. And, you know, I know I've smoked a couple. You know, this kid here, he's a young teenager, so he's learning on everything. And first lesson I'm going to teach him is how to change his oil, because this probably could have been avoided, maybe, you know, if the oil's running low, you know, the clutch overheats, because, you know, that oil level sits right here. So without oil on these clutch plates, you know, she's going to overheat. Or, you know, he's trying to be the next, you know, super motocross star, and he's hammering on the clutch, but considering they're pretty low on oil, I'm going to say make sure you check your oil before you go out every day. Make sure you change your oil regularly. And, you know, then that'll save you probably at least a couple $100. Because I was looking up the plates for this, and the only ones I could find were the stock Yamaha ones off Rocky Mountain ATV. All the aftermarkets, like the EBCs, everything's out of stock right now. It's not a very super popular bike. You know, it's a beginner bike. More just like a mellow trail riding bike. And, you know, 14-year-old kids riding it like a full-on motocross bike. So, you know, that being said, change your oil. You know, check your oil. Because if not, you're going to start spending a lot of money. These bikes are expensive to begin with, so. But, yeah, once I get all the parts, I'll probably do a second part video of, you know, taking everything, you know, I'll take the rest of the clutch basket apart for you guys. Put everything back together. You know, I'll clean it up the best I can. And, but it's probably going to take a few weeks for all the parts to come in. So, and I'm pretty sure his dad's going to make him buy the parts, so it might be a little bit longer. So, if you guys like the video, you know, drop it in the comments, let me know if you like, and, you know, if you want to subscribe to the channel and see a whole lot more stuff like this. I'm, you know, starting to build this channel, and I think it's cool. I do a lot of cool projects, all kinds of motorcycles, you know, primarily dirt bikes, but I, you know, street bike work, and do a lot of suspension work, getting into the world of machining and 3D printing. So I've been kind of putting that up on shorts as I'm going along. And, you know, if you want to see some more, just let me know. All right, everyone. Have a good night. And we'll catch you in the next one.